Sometimes you just need to take the slips out and bowl defensively. And you also need to be careful with your computer's defense as well. If you need a VPN, go Nord. NordVPN.com/Kimber to get a 2-year contract with a discount, plus 4 extra months and gifts in some markets. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the show notes. So put in some dot balls and turn them into maidens via NordVPN.com/Kimber. Welcome to the Scoreboard. Well, we have just a lot of content to get through today, so I'm not even going to say anything pithy other than the fact that I really did enjoy waking up to watch Uganda scratch their way to their first ever World Cup victory. I thought to myself, well, they're going to win it easy. No, I'll set an alarm just to see how they go. They lost a bunch of wickets. I was like, well, I have to watch this because they're either going to win this game or they're going to lose it. And special shout out to Papua New Guinea for 15 wides when defending 78. And I watched a bit of Australia, Oman as well, of course. There's the India Island team maps that we were talking about yesterday. I don't know how important team maps are because this is the most important thing. We're working on a video for the main channel, which will hopefully be finished fairly soon. This is one of the most embarrassing things that's ever happened to the ICC. So if you don't understand it, let me explain it. All of these balls are landing roughly on the same spot. I don't know what the exact meter count is, but I'm assuming it's somewhere around 6 to 8 meters, which generally the ball should be coming through around here, I suppose. And instead we have one ball almost tunneling low, another ball hitting the top of the stumps, another one hitting around the rib cage, and then 2 at the face. The New York wicket is unsafe. It shouldn't be used for professional cricket. They have made a horrible, horrible decision. We have numbers on the actual wickets themselves. So this is, I think, up until the Papua New Guinea Uganda game. No, actually, it might not be because Ghana's gone down even lower. So it's not so much about the scores, although you can see the average runs per wicket is 14 and it's less than a run a ball. But Guyana's less than a run a ball as well, and its average is 15.45. The big difference is that Guyana's had a few associate teams playing on it, and also Guyana is a bad low wicket, and we were all aware of that, and we all knew that was going to come in. This is not going to happen in Guyana. Just the blue stuff will happen, not the red stuff, or not the pink stuff. So you can prepare for this, or you can prepare just for this happening, although this is still harder to face. You can't prepare for both things to happen. That is utterly ludicrous. So yet there have been other low-scoring venues. We're not talking about New York being a low-scoring venue. That's a perfectly acceptable thing to have in a T20 World Cup. What we're specifically talking about, the fact is that international batters cannot trust the bounce on this wicket. It should not be used for 90-mile-an-hour bowlers, or in Dustin Shanaka's case, 70-mile-an-hour bowlers. And because of that, Ireland lost a whole bunch of wickets trying to score, and they tried to put pressure back on. I thought they handled it a little bit better than Sri Lanka did, although to be fair, I think South Africa's bowling attack is uniquely set up for this wicket more than anything else, but they clearly just never got away. And great little partnership towards the end was Josh Little and Delaney, getting them up to any kind of score at all, but it was always going to be a long way short. I really liked the way that Delaney went about it, and as I said, Josh Little was good. And I actually put a sneaky bet on Curtis Camper to score the most runs after the first or second wicket, because I assumed that he was the sort of guy that wouldn't notice the wicket. And he came out like he didn't notice the wicket. Sadly, he ended up just nibbling one away and getting caught. But I thought he looked okay as well. Everyone else looked like it was the worst thing they'd ever seen. No person in the world should have to face Jasprit Bumrah on that wicket. I still don't understand why he wasn't just bowled out by the 10th over, just to end the chase entirely. Brilliant bowling. Him and Nortje on that wicket are they'd almost be the two guys I would pick outside of Morne Morkel, Kyle Jamieson, maybe Glenn McGrath, Curtly Ambrose. They'd almost be and Joel Garner, I suppose. That'd be your dream team. And I think Anrich Nortje and Jasprit Bumrah on that wicket are right there. This worries me a little bit more going forward. He had a complete breakdown in the power play when no pressure was being put on him at all. It was bizarre. there was also times that I know Hardik's ended up with the wickets, but just Hardik kept bowling full. Mate, just hit the wicket. Let the pitch do all the work for you. So we can see here, you can sort of see the kind of shot that Sterling plays here. It's a full ball, but he's ended up sort of playing a cross-bat shot, and that's because it's reared up at him a little bit. The highlights, the problem with showing wickets, not this particular wicket, but the highlights in general is what they really show you is, what's the best way of putting it? They show you the balls where the batter's gone out, which there might be one or two really bad balls where the batter has been dismissed. But it's the other balls that actually cause the bigger issue. There was one that Rohit Sharma missed that just jagged back like a meter, and you just thought, well, how is anyone supposed to hit that? And there was another ball that sort of spooned up, and the highlights don't have those because they're not boundaries and they're not wickets. Don't get me started on how bad cricket highlights are. We will be here all day. But you could see the ball just kind of getting stuck. That was really built up as much as anything by the fact that Balbirnie wasn't trusting the surface. That is just not a shot that a player plays if he is trusting the surface at all. He wasn't sure what to do there. And I'll just show it to you again. Look at where his feet are. He's expecting that to spit up at him. Right? It's not a good shot, don't get me wrong. But it's because he's expecting that to spit up at him because a couple of other balls have. And instead, it's just slipped through. And that's the inconsistency. In this one over... actually, we'll get back to that one in a minute. But in this one over, we saw balls from Arshdeep bounce 3 times and fly through above head high to Rishabh Pant. This should not be happening in a T20 wicket. Sometimes it happens in the first session of a test match. This is one, I just love this ball from Hardik Pandya. And this is why I was saying before, I thought he bowled a little bit too full at times. Just, dude, the pitch is going to do so much of the work for you here. Let it do that. But a beautiful wobble ball just outside off stump and seams back. And Lorcan Tucker is playing a shot to a ball not on this wicket, really, if we're being honest there. And then this one, sorry, I went too far ahead. So the short ball here, it doesn't look too bad from front on. It just looks like a short ball that Harry Tector missed. But from here, you can tell that it's very hard to show you the actual dynamics of it. But that ball shouldn't be getting to his head height from that length. That should really be more of a back of a length delivery. And it just gets way high on him. And, that's dangerous. That was one of the balls where I thought to myself, well, actually I did in the Sri Lanka game as well. But I really thought that was an issue. There's nothing wrong with that one. Good bowling. Ball still nipping around a little bit. Curtis Gamper is nipped away. And then they get to the point where they're just trying to find runs by finding a method. And you could see the way. So he backs away here. Wrong one. So he backs away. And you can see the way the ball just sort of does that tennis ball bounce again. And sometimes you get tennis ball bounce on a cricket pitch and it's a little bit slow. This seems to be a little bit different. But you can just see the way it doesn't quite match where it's landed. And again, he's trying to find fast runs. That's just a very good ball to a tail ender. We don't need to see the rest there. But I just want to get back to this. So you can see here that Hardik was kind of all over the place a little bit. These are the balls. I just don't think he needs to bowl as many as he did. I think they're being generous here that he only bowled a couple. This is the kind of length either in this area that you want to be, and then you can still try your Yorker. So that full toss is just another. That was just another attempted Yorker, of course. And there's the one full length that was trying to be a Yorker. I think it's fine if you're Jasprit Bumrah and you have a world-class Yorker to try a couple. But I think that Hardik just wasn't sure what his length was here. I think on a wicket like this, you don't need, especially Hardik has such a good wobble ball. Just pick either bowl back of a length or on a good length and let the wicket do the rest of the work for you. And I think he probably got that a little bit wrong, but he still ended up with 3 wickets. So he certainly did well. This is his length average versus economy in T20 International since 2015. So we can see he doesn't have a particularly great Yorker or successful Yorker at international cricket. This is something you will see with most bowlers. He's at his best here when he does bowl just a good length. You can see here what's an average of 27, economy of 7.27. he can still bowl that back of a length because that's working for him. But you can see here, full and Yorker not getting any wickets. And a lot of those Yorkers that he got wrong are probably going to end up over here and over here. So if that's the case, I think he can actually do this because he has a third length anyway. And this is his values as a bowler over the years. Look, I think a lot of this just relies on his fitness. He's probably a bowler around here at his absolute best, you know, so that low end quadrant. But that is huge if you're the fifth bowler. And in his case, sometimes the sixth bowler. We can see Arshdeep in T20 internationals has been pretty much a power play only bowler so far. It'll be interesting to see how he goes in the death there again. And you don't need him in the middle all that much. So that was that innings, such as it was. And then India just lost the 2 wickets. Of course, Rohit Sharma probably should have been out from that edge that went through Slip's hand. And you can see 3 guys didn't really get in at all. Rishabh Pant just played some shots that made me feel like, I just felt like it was stupid that he was out there. In fact, I felt that it was stupid that both teams had to bat out there, but certainly when Rishabh was batting. And I think I was a bit shocked that Rohit ended up with a good strike rate. But I do think he worked out that, and Gareth Delaney, if you look at some of Delaney as well, I think a couple of them worked out that if you were prepared to be hit or to occasionally have the ball just sort of rear up near your head dangerously, you could kind of sit and wait for some of those pop-up balls, which is probably one difference in this pitch than we saw in the South Africa-Sri Lanka one, where the short balls were so fast in that one that you would probably be too petrified to do it too often. So it did play a little bit different than the last New York wicket. And we just see some of Rohit shots here. So I thought this was a really important shot on this wicket because he got the full toss and just absolutely smashes it away. And that's the sort of thing that it is hard to do when you're not trusting the pitch, to be ready for the mistake ball. This one outside off stump is just incredible timing, but you can still see the spongy nature of the outfield. Oops, sorry, went too far ahead. That's one of the ones I was talking about where you just see it hit the wicket and sit up a little bit. So it's not a normal Rohit shot completely because he has to wait for it a little bit more. Whereas that one comes on fast, right? And he's helping that with the pace. So you can see within 2 pull shots how different those two are. And again, cashing in on another full toss. It sounds silly, but it is just a necessity on a wicket like this. And the fact that he got 10 runs off 2 balls from those was a huge advantage for him. And then we got Rohit average by strike rate and shots in T20s overall. So obviously, let's just go to the pull shot because that's fun. He doesn't have a great average with it, but that strike rate of 263 just means that teams still feel very uncomfortable about going for him there. And then the flick is one of the most efficient shots. I think really Indian cricket is so many players from India are so brilliant at that. It's always worth shouting out. And then we got Rishabh Pant here as well. It just looks weird. It looks like a computer game the way the ball was bouncing on the outfield at times. But yeah, straight and full and playing through the line. But this is the shot I really want to look at. This is the one that I could have almost done a whole video on. Just the way this ball comes on so poorly that he ends up just slapping it straight off, maybe off the splice. And that he times it so well. But in no way was that the shot he was trying to play. That is an ugly, ugly cricket shot that he's managed to get away. Whereas that, you can tell just the difference there. That ball's just come on. And so many times when we do see a 4 or a 6 in this game, it's just from the ball coming on perfectly there. That's just overpitched from the spinner. And what are you going to do about that? That is ridiculous, that shot. And well done to him, because I thought that might be a shot that you could try if you knew the bowlers were going to be going slightly back of a length over and over again. Just that ability to, what's the best way of putting it? Because the ball's sitting up, you can kind of hit up with it a little bit more. And this is something that you don't have to do much in international cricket, but something that you kind of have to learn in club cricket a little bit. Market Air probably still bowled too many poor balls, but his best ball is absolutely world class. And his next best ball is not. Ben White got a wicket at the end when Sky was trying to smack him everywhere. they probably just needed Barry McCarthy to get a couple of wickets today, and Josh Little ended up going for runs. Again, probably not a wicket that I would have thought would have suited Josh Little compared to some of the others. Let's get to Australia run per over by phase in the Oman game. I think we've talked more than enough about that last game. Interesting to see Travis Head not really caring about the wicket and deciding to just do what he does. And again, we see a team against an associate team just probably gear back. Now, some of this is wickets because you can see the double wicket strike in here. And in this case, they then got on top of the surface, and there was that drop of Marcus Stoinis, which allowed for this, and then a very good end as well. And it made up for it. If you think about it, though, if they didn't, if that drop was taken, maybe they end up on 145, 140. Would Oman have got there? I don't know, but it would have been very, very interesting. The Stoinis innings, ridiculous to have figures like that, but I think the Warner one's almost as important. On a wicket like this, being able to make sure that you stay in the whole time while a few other players are coming and going early on. What a catch, the one off Glenn Maxwell, off David Maxwell, I almost said there. But yeah, I think Warner and Stoinis both played their roles here. And ended with very different kinds of strike rate. And this is probably thinking of it. I said he dropped it. He didn't really drop it, did he? He just sort of carried it for 6. I'd forgotten that part of it. I was half asleep when this happened. This kind of wicket, though, really does help this kind of the way that Stoinis hits, because he can just put his big front elbow down and play straight through the line, whereas a lot of players don't hit their sixes in that kind of method. And so, you look at him compared to a lot of the other players. Like, look at that. It's just him on top of the ball. And because he's so powerful and his ability to hit down the ground like that is really quite important. Although, I think a few of us, well, I'm not sure we would have hit it for 6, but we certainly wouldn't have minded facing the full toss there. But yeah, just the ability to sort of just power through the line with that high front elbow is really exceptional for Stoinis. I think we've seen enough of that. Stoinis' T20 innings, so that was yesterday. So it's also interesting that it's one of the highest scoring innings he's ever played, and a very good strike rate. He's sort of become this sort of 20 to 40 guy for Australia, the role that they play him in and everything else. And he really wants to be in this box quite a bit. And then if you can take a couple over here or over here, those are also really quite helpful, and it certainly helped them yesterday. Mehran Khan, again, a couple of wickets here. I'm not sure he's completely the standout, obviously, and it was harder for him to do the same thing that he did in the previous game just because of Stoinis. But I did think some of the others maybe struggled with him a little bit more. I thought this was probably, Akib Ilyas took that great catch, and he said before the first game that he planned on he wanted to be man of the match in a couple of games in this World Cup, and I think he had a really poor first game. I thought this was absolutely fantastic, but they had a couple of economical bowlers through here that really kept that overall total down, but the hitting at the end was a bit too much, and this start, the Mitchell Stark over in itself was a lifestyle of Mitchell Stark, wasn't it? Wides and wickets and boundaries, everything was going on there. But when they lost that 4th wicket, when they were still 34, 36, really pushed them back. But so I'm so impressed that they managed to bat on. Some of this was that Australia pushed on with their 5th bowler at this point. Again, not a big fan of that. Even with Bumrah yesterday, but I didn't think India did it as bad as some of the other teams, although they did bowl both their spinners when they probably didn't need to. But so many teams in this league, like, you've got a team that's struggling on this dodgy wicket. Don't make it so that don't give them a chance to come back. And they really did. And they were never really in the game, Oman, but I thought this was good. They'll be happy with this, and they should be. And Mehran Khan, we talked about him with the ball quite a bit in this tournament already, but did very well with some hitting there. And Ayan Khan obviously scored the most of the runs, and the captain was in a little bit after the start. I thought, and considering the opposition, this was quite good. It was interesting that they went with Nathan Ellis. I'm assuming that is a selection decision, and there's nothing wrong with Pat Cummins, but at the last time I checked, I couldn't see any information that that was the case. In this particular game, as good as Nathan Ellis is, probably the better bowler in these conditions would have been Pat Cummins. And I think we might see that a lot throughout this whole competition, if we're being honest. Teams having to use multiple different bowlers for different pitches. Like Kuldeep didn't play at New York, despite the fact he's obviously in their best team. They just didn't need Kuldeep in that side, right? Although the way Arshdeep bowled, maybe Kuldeep could have helped a little bit. Although Arshdeep took on the early wickets, didn't he? Marcus Stoinis took a few wickets here. On that kind of wicket, Josh Hazlewood is very hard to hit. And you can see it was a little bit easier for Alice to be hit for runs here. I actually thought that it was the Maxwell over I was a little bit more interested in with the way he went about it. Not the way he went about, the fact that they gave him overs when they kind of didn't need to. And this is Stoinis picking up some wickets. I thought he bowled well at the start, Stoinis, though. And again, a kind of pitch that I thought would have helped him. But Hazlewood, I thought, was certainly the best of the bowlers. He didn't bowl a lot in a T20 cricket back in the early part of his career. But when he did, it didn't work particularly well also. He just didn't have a method. He went off and he's worked on it. And we did a video 2 World Cups ago now on how brilliant Hazlewood has been, in that time. And you can see here, like, he's plus on true wickets and he's got a true economy of 1.1. He's been fantastic for a long time now. So Australia will be happy with the win, even if it wasn't the sexiest one. Let's just have a look at these two teams. And we can see here that Papua New Guinea is not massively strong at any part of the game outside of the power play batting. And a lot of that is a one dude. And Uganda is very good in the middle batting, is probably their best bet. And of course, their middle spinners are not too bad as well. And so they got the 3 wickets early on, and then they kept that pressure on as well. Papua New Guinea never really recovered from this. And they are a limited batting side, and it was a tough wicket. But all things considered, they just lost too many wickets in too many phases. They probably only need one phase where they don't lose wickets. They could have got themselves into a better situation. Maybe this gets up to 5.5 and that allows this to get up to 8.5. But just so many wickets all the way through. And that's credit to Uganda on that one. And Hiri, who looked dreadful in his first game, got to 15 in this game. But you see, I think for me, there's a lot of guys who chewed up a lot of balls here, but didn't really put any pressure back on. And interesting enough that Doriga made runs again. I know it's only 12, but in this game, that's runs. In this game, it's a good innings. It's a fantastic innings. But yeah, it's interesting that he's chipped in for them a couple of times, but they really need Tony Euro to start making some runs. There's a lot of guys here who are medium level talent batters, right? They really need their stars to come up. Well done to Frank here, who's 4 overs went for, let me just check that. 4 runs. Ridiculous figures. But yeah, they've got 2 bowlers under an economy of 4. And the constant wickets helps the bowlers as well. But they actually reminded me a little bit of the sort of thing I've seen Papua New Guinea do before. Just the wicket was a little bit helpful and just kept putting it in the right area and putting pressure on. And there's some ridiculous figures here. But we got Frank's nude nut off spin there. I mean, does that spin? I'm going to watch that again. Does it spin? Yeah. And it keeps, look how low that keeps. That sort of, it's not that low angle bowling, but that's hit the bottom of the stumps and it's bounced. Where does it bounce? It bounces here. It shouldn't be hitting the bottom of the stumps, right? Really, really skid on. But we see that on this wicket at times. And so, it's something that we are certainly used to. You can see there's not a massive amount of revolutions on it and just skids through, but not a great shot from Amini either. Again, skidding through, keeping low. That almost looks like that's an interesting ball. Just looking back on that, let's have a little look at that. That looks like he's putting underspin on it rather than side spin, and he's trying to skid them through low. Does he do that on the other one? I don't think he did. have a look at this guy. Yeah, that one's just a little bit more side spin. So that's clever bowling, right? I suppose if you've bowled 4 overs for, what was it? 1 run, 2 runs, 4 runs, whatever it was. You've got some mad skills. Well done to Frank. Not been enough Franks in cricket for a long time. And this is Uganda. This was ridiculous, wasn't it, really? I think Papua New Guinea should have defended this after the start that they got with all the wickets. I know there was that great partnership. When was that around in here? Probably, because they lost their 5th wicket, and then the next wicket was probably towards the end of the 16th here. I thought the partnership was fantastic, but there were miscatches. They weren't as good in the field as they would normally be. They certainly gave Uganda every opportunity, but it's the wides for me. They just actually, it's a combination of. I'm okay with it. Oh, that was weird. Did we miss a wicket? Is that what was happening? I don't even know what was happening there. There's a combination of a couple of things here. It was the wides, which were terrible. You can't have 15. You can't be giving 15 runs to your opposition in a moment like that. There was the just the general fielding. So there was a drop catch. There were 2 drop catches. Sorry. And general fielding from a team that's as good as fielding at this was really poor. But thirdly, the fielding placements, there were so many runs that were going in the same direction. They were basically, for the last, 5 or 6 overs, hitting everything to backward point down to third man and to short mid-wicket. And the short mid-wicket was too straight. And they had the third man back, but there was no real power in any of those shots. I think you could have made them try and take a risk to try and hit that for 4 and have the 2 players back. They could have changed the field a little bit. It was too many easy opportunities given. But all play to Riyazat Ali Shah, who I thought was just really, really good the way he went about his batting. Very, very smart. Got himself well set and then just knocked the ball around. And then he was pretty much the guy who he chased almost half the run. In fact, he must have chased more than half the runs on his own because the rest would have been wides, right? But I was watching him in the game against Afghanistan when they struggled a little bit there as well, and I just thought that I like his footwork. I like the way he thinks his way through innings. This was not a sexy knock by any in any way. He had the 1 boundary, but mostly it was this just finding angles and everything else, and that was what this wicket called for. But this one, they're way too good a fielding team to be dropping that, especially that man. That was probably one of the worst shots he played as well, because I don't think he really needed to play that shot, and they had plenty of time. But yeah, just looking for the angles there. Again, finding the gap between cover and deep mid off, and that's all you'll see, right? Time and time again, him just finding the gaps between that, and the only difference there was it was a full toss, and so he timed it better, and that was his 1 boundary. You have seen his singular boundary from this game, and you could see good footwork, good placement, and good timing, and he still just managed to get a boundary. Could argue that might have even been stopped. And then you had that kind of batting over and over again. Off the face, often off the front foot, but he could do it off the back foot as well, opening up and being alert to simple errors as well. That was the sloppiness I was talking about when we talk about Papua New Guinea. Anyway, and here we go, and we got the bowlers. They probably just needed either Kariko or Asad Vala to have a mad game, and they both had decent games, but they weren't absolutely great. Chad couldn't be hit again. Franks and Chads. We need more Franks and Chads. And now bowled well, but I feel like a lot of his runs late on were from wides down the leg side looking for Yorkers, and I'm not even sure that they had to look for Yorkers. So yeah, I didn't think they nailed that perfectly. But that's the end of those 3 games, and let's just get to the game today and have a look at these 2 sides and how they line up against each other. So you can see here, the USA certainly have been very good at bowling in the power play, but they did not bowl well in the power play against Canada. So they're going to want to come back there. But I would say their two main skills are batting in the power play and bowling in the power play. And if they're going to have an upset, they're probably going to have to get Stephen Taylor to do some damage and Ali Khan to do some damage, as those are two of their best players. And then we could separate this out for Pakistan. What we see from Pakistan is a par batting side who wants to be a better bowling side but isn't. You could see that failure to have any great spinners in the middle since Shadab has dropped off has been a big issue for them. Their new ball bowlers are fine, but they are not devastating. And their death bowling, which also used to be brilliant, is not as brilliant at the moment. So there's certainly some issues there with their team. But I still expect them to beat the USA. And then the game straight after, I've talked about this before, look at the symmetry of Namibia. Absolutely beautiful. And then Scotland's not like that. So let's bring the two together and just have a look at it. You can see Scotland definitely a batting side here, but they bowl well in the power play. They hold good into the middle overs as well. And then you can see their death bowling goes off. And you can just see how different that is to Namibia, who Namibia's strength is the fact that they don't have any noticeable weaknesses, but they also don't have any strengths that should bother other teams. Whereas, you know, if Munsey and Jones get going in the top, if Leask and those guys and Barrington start to hit in the middle, and then they bat to what about number 9, I think. They can do a little bit of damage with the new ball as well, and they've got Mark Watt. They've got a lot of different options. They should certainly go into that game as favourites, but both of the sides have played some, okay cricket in the brief amount of time that we've seen them in this tournament. So, I just want to get back to this actually. See if I can. Oh, well, no, I can't. I won't be able to show it. But the Uganda, Papua New Guinea game. So Papua New Guinea started that game on many betting sites, but certainly on the major trading sites at 130 or 135. There's some good value out here because there's no way that anyone knows enough about Papua New Guinea to say that they should be that level of favourite. And there's a few games between the associates, if you are a betting fan, that is worth keeping your eye out for that, because there are some baffling odds in some of the associate games. Even when Scotland were on top in that last game, I don't think they ever came into less than 3-1. So, they were certainly around that at different times. So there are some things that are worth having a look at. Anyway, that's the end of the scoreboard part of the show, but we'll get to your questions now. So let me just take a quick break and I'll read them, and then I'll be back and I'll read them again, but this time out loud, and you will be able to hear me because this is the scoreboard and I am Jared Kimber. Remember that cricket is a funny game. 100 years before we protected our heads, players looked after their groin. So don't be as stupid as old cricketers. Protect your computer. NordVPN is the protection I use when facing cyber short balls or when the rights issue tried to dismiss me. NordVPN will help you get through the straight bat of any GEO blocks so you can watch all the cricket you want. If you need your pitch changed, well, NordVPN can doctor any surface to a new location so your IP address is set up for you to win. Want to buy an associate cricket shirt from a place that won't ship to your country? Select NordVPN. Want to watch a game on a free stream in another hemisphere? Give NordVPN the ball. Or if you just want to watch a clip on social media that the cricket board won't allow, promote NordVPN to pinch it. So if you need a VPN, go Nord. Use nordvpn.com/Kimber to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan plus 4 additional months for free. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the show notes. Protect your computer like a cricketer protects their nether region with NordVPN today. All right, welcome back. So the first question here is from, why can't I read this? It's from, I've had some really good questions today, and I'm not just saying that because Rupesh has asked about my book. And Summer is here, and I'm still waiting for your book. The book is being released in a couple of days, but let me see if I can actually show it to you, which is, to be honest, I should have set this up beforehand. But, oh yeah, I think I can bring it up here. So you can find it on Amazon. It's called this is the old cover that we originally made, but we've changed it a little bit. But it's called Overthrowing Cricket's Empire, and it's about all the times that teams have beaten England for the first time. There's some variations on that theme throughout the book, but that's generally what it's about, of international nations sort of growing up. And there's a little bit on women's cricket as well, and why the English women's team is not like the England men's team in that kind of sense. But we go through every single nation. So obviously it starts with Australia, and it's all the international nations. So we don't have things like Argentina beating the MCC or anything, but all the major international games, all the way through to Afghanistan in the last World Cup. So it does come out, where are we here? On the 10th of June, but you can pre-order it now. I should say the links in the show notes, but I'm not sure I've actually sent it to Muku. But I'm sure if you put Jared Kimber in, and obviously Abhishek, or Jared Kimber and Abhishek, it should come up in your Amazon. I'm not sure where else it is available. This is the only link I have at the moment. But yeah, it's definitely, it was a really cool thing to be able to make. And as my editor said just before we went to publish a manuscript, he said, I really hope for your sake that no one beats England at this World Cup who's never beaten them before. And up until that point, I had not even thought about that. Anyway, great question. Really love that, and big fan of all that sort of stuff. Of being able to sell my own book to you on this show, but we'll make an ad for it and stuff, and we'll try and make it fun, because it will probably come up a million times, but no more than Nord or anyone else does. I don't know how to say this one. Is that Russian? I don't know what language that is. Anyway, Kay says, my super chat is a bit strange. Have you ever been to Lamar, Colorado? I have been to Lamar, Colorado. Yes. So my friend Todd Spear, who went on to be a basketball writer and basketball statistician, I suppose he would be now, works for Basketball Reference and NBA. I think he's still working for both those places. I grew up with Todd and his family. His older brother Simon and I were very close. We lived together for a while as well. And when we went backpacking around the world for the 2003 World Cup, we actually started by backpacking across America. And so we actually went to meet Todd, who was playing junior college in Lamar for the Running Lopes, which I don't have my t-shirt anymore. I think someone stole my Running Lopes t-shirt, which is maybe the worst thing that's ever happened to me. So yeah, so I watched some junior college, and there was like a punch up in the toilet between baseball teams who were at the basketball game. It was a bit wild. And then eventually we went to see a few NBA games, and then eventually we made our way to South Africa and backpacked around the World Cup as well. So I have been to Lamar, Colorado. It was cold. That's all I really remember. And the basketball game, which was pretty wild. Conrad McBad says, the Guyana pitch scares me as a Kiwi after watching PNG versus Uganda. How important are the warm-up games for T20 compared to ODIs and Test tours? I don't think they're any more important, Conrad, if we're being honest. But if you were to play a game in Guyana and you haven't spent a lot of time preparing in Guyana, it's a trip, man. It's been like this for a long time. If you notice in my work, the two grounds I use as the biggest outliers consistently are the WACA and Guyana, because, it's two different sports, cricket, when it's played on Guyana and the WACA. You can almost throw Guyana and New York into that now, despite the fact they're both low scoring, but in completely different ways. But yeah, it is a tricky wicket. There's no doubt about that. It keeps low. It's weird because it's kind of like a UAE pitch, but it doesn't really quite play that way. So I do think it is a bit bizarre, the whole thing. But yeah, no doubt that it's a weird wicket. And yeah, I think it's really testing for the teams who have to play there, especially if you have more than one game there. Maybe that helps. But yeah, the more time you spend in Guyana preparing for that wicket, the better. SH Rules says, I didn't get to watch warm-up game between India and Bangladesh, but I didn't hear that many complaints about the pitch in that game. Was it not as bad then, or just not as covered as much? So I had friends who told me that it was going to be the worst wicket ever based on that. So obviously they saw something. They said that Bangladesh bowled really, really poorly. I think that Bangladesh bowled a lot of spin on that wicket, whereas as we now know, spin is handy on that wicket, but there's something else that's quite better. And then Bangladesh certainly struggled in their innings. But it's still, I would say, from everything I've heard, that might have been the best of the three surfaces we've seen in New York so far. So what a waste of the slightly better version. But no, all my friends who are experts in this, analysts and traders and those sorts of people, they're all like, this is dreadful. I didn't see that game though. Sigma says, having a tournament on this many variable pitches makes it a poker tournament. ICC incompetent as usual. No, I've got no problem with that. I actually think, Sigma, that's what World Cup should be. It should be problem solving. You should be trying to have multiple wickets. And if you go back to the Australian tournament, in the last World Cup, you had Geelong and Hobart, Adelaide, Brisbane, Sydney, Wacker. They're pretty different too, and they all played very, very differently due to conditions as well. I think that's a good thing. You shouldn't just be able to win a World Cup because you are good at one particular thing. You should be able to win a World Cup by problem solving in game situations. So I think that's my favorite thing actually about cricket in general. And that's what I like about World Cups. And even India was like that, right? There were very different kinds of wickets all the way through. Another one from Sigma says, please do a video on how much the ICC invests in research and development. Look, I've done it before on balls. It's nothing. It's very, very little. All the boards in the world, outside the 3 major ones that you mentioned there, are hand to mouth. They do not want to be in a situation where their money is being used on research and development. They just want the money, and they are the ICC. If you ask the ICC, they would love to do more research and development, and sometimes they pair up with universities to do stuff like that, but yeah, they really don't. Is the New York pitch likely to generate upsets, or are the better teams just going to dominate? Or are certain teams better than others? So I haven't looked at all the games that are there at the moment. Can I do that very quickly for you? Because there are a couple of teams that I think would be very, very well suited to it, who could create upsets there. So there's, where are we at the moment? Does it allow me to do grounds? It does allow me to do grounds. So Nassau County International Cricket Stadium. Where have we got next? So we have Canada versus Ireland. So Canada has no big advantage there, but if they bowled first, and I like their new ball bowlers, they could put a little bit of damage on. But I think the really interesting game is not India-Pakistan, although I have no idea what's going to happen in that game. But I think the really interesting game is Netherlands-South Africa, if Netherlands bowl first. Because they have the kind of bowlers, maybe not quite as much as some of their other attacks, but they have the kind of bowlers that could be really, really, Van Meekeren could be a problem on that wicket. Logan Van Beek, I'm trying to think who their fourth seamer will be, but they have some people that can cause issues. Bangladesh are playing South Africa, so that's not a good matchup for them. Canada are playing Pakistan. Again, I just don't think Canada's quite good enough. And then United States against India, I don't see them. So yeah, I think the big game for me, maybe Canada or Ireland, I've got a bit of a half an eye on from that kind of point. But the big one for me is Netherlands, South Africa, because I think that could be fascinating if that goes in that direction. And I do think you need to bowl first, because we've seen, India batted okay on the surface, other than everyone getting hit, and their control factor was still like 55 and 60%. But part of the reason that you can do that, I thought the wicket got worse in the second innings in the first game. I don't think it really did in the second game. So I think the Sri Lanka South African game was the worst wicket of the 2 I've seen, but of the 3 from the people I've talked to. That was a wicket where maybe whoever bowled first probably wins. I'm not quite sure this last one was quite that. So we might see something like that before. And Tabletop Triumphs says, how come both attacking batters and attacking bowlers are encouraged by commentators? If scoring runs quickly is more valuable than retaining wickets, shouldn't bowlers contain runs over taking wickets? So this has really been something that it's partly because the 2 things you were talking about there, Tabletop, are the most exciting things, right? No one really wants to watch Michael Beer get hit for 12 runs or 4 overs. Right. Well, what we really want to see is, oh God, I've forgotten his name. Shamar Joseph's come in and cause absolute chaos by swinging the ball around corners. So Mayank Yadav, or some exciting mystery spinner, spin the ball both ways and get wickets. So that's the basic thing that commentators are always going to come back to. But the secondary thing, I think, also is at the moment there is a big thought, and I'm certainly a part of this, that the only way to stop people making runs is by taking wickets. Now, that's not quite the case in this tournament, but in T20 cricket over the last year and a half, there has been a shift. And if you don't get these batters out, I think it's an issue. And I talked about it a lot during the 50-over World Cup as well. You have to attack, and you have to find a way to generate wickets. And I think England were very good at that in their heyday of just working out how to continually take wickets and put themselves in a good position. Well, anyway, we have successively done 3 games, of which I think I watched all 3 of these. And on top of that, preview 2 other games that are coming up as well. So we're all over it. But I'm going to head off and make my piece for the main site on the New York pitch. It's a little bit conspiracy led at times. That one. But I had good fun making it anyway. Please remember there's 2 channels. We've got the MVP awards for the other channel going up as well. So there's plenty of good stuff going up all the time. But I'm Jared Kimber. This is the Scoreboard, and we will be back again same time tomorrow for more of, this kind of thing, really. If you need your pitch changed, well, NordVPN can doctor any surface to a new location so that your IP address is set for you to win. Want to watch a game on a free stream in another hemisphere? Give NordVPN the ball. Or if you just want to watch a clip on social media that a cricket board won't allow, promote NordVPN to pinch hit. So if you need a VPN, go Nord. Use nordvpn.com/Kimber to get a 2-year contract with a discount, plus 4 extra months and gifts in some markets. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the show notes. Protect your computer like a bowler protects the boundaries in the death overs with nordvpn.com/Kimber today.